you sold SkySig to a publicly traded company for
Mhm.
$100 million. That's an incredible exit over the course of 4 years. You've got and you're living so cheaply, right? You're totally like pinching pennies. In some
Mhm.
cases, unsure, early on, like, oh, is this real? Is this affiliate marketing? Am I going to keep getting paychecks? I'm going to keep living in a $300 apartment to, living in a car until you upgrade to the hostel, then upgrade to an apartment to now having $100 million. I'd love to hear what that was like, that experience.
Well, the negotiation was pretty grueling. The actual sales cycle was pretty grueling. We had two companies that were basically bidding on us, but both of them almost fell out at the last minute, and we were starting to have cash flow issues, and I think maybe just the fact that I had been testing e-cigarettes like nonstop for 4 years, my body was like over nicotined out, for lack of better words. I was pretty burnt out at that point. I was flying back and forth from China to Edinburgh like every 2 weeks and basically living at factories. And still at that point, I was like living off basically nothing, just investing everything back into the business. But I was 28 when that whole thing happened, so it was sort of surreal. It was an experience I'd never had before, going through any type of sales process that big. I was sitting across the table from the top six executives at Philip Morris, and then the top six executives at Lori Lord, and having to do these pretty hardened negotiations. So it was, it still is surreal to me. I ended up in the hospital for 10 days before closing. And I think it was just literally because my body was so like burnt out and stressed out and didn't know how to handle like that type of pressure. Cause it was one of those things that was like, look, we're either going to get this deal done and that type of money is on the table, or we're not. And this whole thing is probably going to fall apart and they're going to eat your lunch, because there was no investing going into these companies. It was still way too gray. No one knew if tobacco was going to own it, pharmaceuticals was going to own it, or governments were just going to shut you down. And I woke up every single day not knowing what that future was going to look like. I woke up every single day thinking this can end tomorrow. And so I was always trying to get a deal done. And fortunately we were able to, but it kind of took, I was pretty strong at that age, but that it really took the life out of me. But man, what an incredible experience. The actual deal turned out to be 50% cash up front and 50% earnout. And the earnout was really straightforward. So we thought it was basically a lock, but literally the week after we completed the deal and got the first half in, we ended up in litigation with a superpower, more or less to say. So the earnout basically got frustrated pretty quick, and the relationships between us and the buyer, were not smooth from that point forward. So we did okay in the earnout, but we didn't get that full allotment. But needless to say, we still did very good. It was myself and three other partners. So for a 28-year-old, it was certainly life-changing money.
No kidding. There's so many things I want to ask you about that experience, because the way that it's like romanticized, having this big exit and what you think it's going to be, what you see in the movies, what you maybe envision from your other friends or see on Facebook, you think it's going to be this unbelievable experience. But then when you actually have it, and I want to know what it's like for you too, but like you think it's going to be one thing, and then it's kind of like, okay, what's next? Did you have anything like that where it like felt so good, but then at a certain period of time, it's like a few days later, a week later, a month later, it's like, okay, this is, so I got some extra digits in the bank account.
It was almost, I hate to be a spoiler, but it was almost all negative
Oh,
from day one. It was not good for me because I was in the hospital building up to that. So I had no energy basically when we signed. I woke up in the hospital. I saw the headline in the news, so I knew the deal was done because I went to sleep with like the paper signed, but we weren't sure if they were going to back out. And I'm like, I signed, I'm done. Like, I'm going to sleep. I woke up, saw it in the news. And then the next day the money was in the account. So it was like bang, bang. And then For me, Justin, it was like I had built this thing from the hatchback with product in the car, like over there just on this wild adventure. And I had this nucleus. The company and the team that we built was like all, I was only 24 to 28 during that time. And the entire team was like, 22 to 24. So it was like this young, it was like almost like a fraternity that was just going to war every single day, like building this thing. No one had experience. We were just in there, all energy, motivation, and ambition. And it was such like an incredibly dynamic and ambitious place to go to work every day. Like I hated the weekends, just wanted to be in the office with everybody. But when we did the deal, part of the deal was like, hey, I'm going to go finish up manufacturing and I'm done. Like 2-3 months, I'm done. And the light switch was on. And when we did the deal, the light switch was off. And like literally that week, it was like, I'm not needed. I was like, how am I not needed? Like, of course I'm needed. No, I'm not needed. And it was this massive void because at the age 28, all of my friends were working. None of them were traveling. Everyone's on the grind trying to, to get there. And I had this, I was just faced with this reality that like my life, I was 100% investing, committed. My entire life was this business. I had nothing else going on. I didn't even date girls for 3 years because I just was putting every bit of attention in the business. And then it was over. So, I immediately tried to replace that with angel investing and massive traveling and going out to bars every night and bars in the day, like, whatever I could to keep my mind off like the void. And it was a very, very difficult time for me. Very difficult 18 months. And to some degree, it's like I said, it's been very difficult to replace that, the whole experience, man. So good.